Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 295 of GI Joburg. And today, we're going on a covert mission to infiltrate Cobra Island. When I say we, I'm referring to myself, Steve, and of course, my battle buddy, the loving Scoopful. It's Rob. Hey, Rob.
Hey! Deadly, not pencils.
That's correct.
How's it
There's
going?
a notable absence this week. Paul,
Oof.
feeling kind of poorly. We wish him well, but the show must go on. Rob, how are you?
Absolutely. I'm doing well now. I've been sick with a cold or a cough or some shit this whole week. But I did brave the weather today, and I watched, which is probably maybe the second best movie, or what's the best movie I've seen so far this year? Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1
Amazing!
in IMAX. It cost me an arm and a leg. Dude,
Worth it.
absolutely worth it. I think it's a fantastic movie. Like, Tom Cruise just sells it. You know, like he's so good.
As the man himself might say, cinema's back, baby. I don't know if cinema
Absolutely.
is back, but this man, this machine, who the hell is he? What pact did he make with his Scientology god to somehow make him the god of cinema? He's incredible. Yeah, look, I've seen it as well.
Can't do wrong. Good.
It's worth a watch, and certainly go to the big screen to see it. This is not a
You have to
home
do it.
movie experience kind of film.
Yes.
I will have one, technical criticism that I'll level at it.
Uh-oh.
Just the fact that, we know, because we know enough about the behind the scenes to know that they did that stunt for real.
Mm.
It was on the first day of shooting. They did it 6 times. It was all done with Tom riding the motorcycle.
Absolutely.
But when we come to it in the film, they cut to various different takes. Maybe it's the same take, but they cut to various different cameras, and it just diminishes the reality of it. And of course, there's a little bit of CG magic happening just to paint the backgrounds, perhaps, or fill in the sort of the mountainscape. But all that just adds to the slight unreality of it, and it makes me sad because they actually did that stunt in camera for real. We know that, but to the casual film goer, it'd be like, you might as well think, oh, they just did that in CG. It's just some talented visual artists making Tom do those things. No, guys, Tom can ride a motorcycle off a cliff. He can also parachute better than any stunt parachute guy out there.
Absolutely. He's
He's
amazing. I saw an interview he did with an Australian TV show actually. And he's for years now. Whenever he does a new project, even before then, he plans it out. He starts practicing the stunts and the stuff that he wants to do in future films before he even gets to the movie. So he sets up the technology and the techniques that he wants to use in future films before he even gets there. So he's been practicing this and getting ready for it for years and years at this point.
The urban legend is when he sat down with the director to hash this out. I mean, they didn't have a plot, they didn't have a script. Tom said, I want to ride a motorcycle off a cliff. And the director was like, I want to do a sequence on a train. I think the reason this is a two-parter is because they wanted to embellish on those moments so much. I felt like there could have easily been enough story to just last one movie. But because this was so pulse-pounding, nail-biting, just fantastic cinematic experience all round, I'm glad that it was given the amount of time that it was given. Unfortunately, I didn't think the same of Spider-Verse Part 1, which I thought could have wrapped up in one film. I thought it dragged in the third act tremendously. And while it's all gorgeously created and burnt out several VFX companies in the process, I'm sure, do you know that they're not wanting to come back to make the second part? They're like,
Oh my
you're up
goodness.
shit creek, man. You
Had to
you
find
burnt
someone
us."
else.
Well, yeah, break and replace, I guess. But the theory is that the VFX artists in Hollywood are all overly fatigued, particularly by Disney films. But
Oh, for
just
sure.
chalk that up to another group of artists going on strike, no doubt. I mean, we've
Well,
lost
at
the
this
writers,
point,
we've lost
yeah.
the actors. Will there be an SDCC? It'll be about comics and toys for the first time in a long time.
That's
Hey, a
going to be
Comic
absolutely
Con that's
amazing.
actually about comics and not just a bunch of celebrities swanning about.
Hey guys. Well, they can go strike outside if they like. I mean, if you want to see them, just go outside the convention center and see them striking. But at least this gives everyone a break, you know. I mean, yes, I don't know. I mean, I don't. Obviously, there's no positives to this. I mean, the positive will be if they get better agreements from the production companies. But it does give people that were burning out a break. I mean, especially the VX artists. But my favorite, like a bit of information I heard about the second Spider-Man movie. I haven't seen it, but I do know that they do a lot of reality bending. You know, they go cross-dimensional, so they use different art styles. The coolest thing I heard was that they actually wanted to include a sequence with the kid playing with an action figure, Spider-Man, but they cut it out, or they didn't get to the point where they would include him in the movie.
I think I've said on social media that if that moment did happen, I would stand up in the theater and applaud. I guess I will save the embarrassment, but yeah, I wish
That would
that
have been so cool. It was like giant human, yeah, like manipulating the toy and saying the lines for the character. That would have been so cool.
yeah, perhaps it's what the third act needed because I mean, spoiler maybe, but the second we go into the multiverse and see hundreds, if not thousands, of Spider-Man, I switch off big time, man. There's multiverse burnout going on, and particularly when it's all versions of the same character, I'm like,
Mm.
okay, get on with the plot, please. While this is all very clever and the art styles are all fabulous, and you could pore over every frame of this movie for a good long while, like narratively, it's like a Xerox machine. It's copy paste, like, and of course, all of them seem completely inept when faced with a new Spider-Man, the
Whoa,
Miles
who's this
Morales
guy?
character.
He's
Yeah,
got totally
exactly. All
different
of a sudden,
powers
they've
from all of
forgotten how to
us.
Spider-Man, and they're kind of tripping over each other. Anyways, this isn't about God. Steve goes to the movies, and Rob goes to the movies.
And
This
Rob
is
goes to the
a
movies.
new podcast altogether. Paul, you're missing out, baby. I'm sure he'd want to weigh in with
Whoa.
his Dial of Destiny experience.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
the summary is it's not as bad as everyone seems to think, according to Paul. You know, the internet. Don't listen to the internet, but we all know that Paul sometimes likes to look through Paul-colored glasses.
Oh, absolutely. He's very much got those Paul color glasses. But the thing is, like, I like a movie has to be good. Like it has to be getting good reception overall for me to even bother to go to the cinema. And whether or not it is any good, I'm not going to bother to go see Indy 5. Um, uh, Even if it is a really good movie, I still think the idea of like an 80-year-old man running around doing these things is just that breaks my suspense of disbelief.
Well, I mean, have your suspension of disbelief shattered by The Flash, which, in spite of the shitty reviews and the extremely low box office return considering its budget, I took myself to see. And like no irony at all. I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed myself immensely. Maybe I was feeling emotionally vulnerable and everything kind of hit. Maybe I keyed into the zaniness of the film early on and it didn't trip me up anymore. Because yes, it is zany. This is not a conventional movie. But I really enjoyed it, man. So seeing a 70-year-old in a bat suit, still okay.
Okay,
Or
that
a
doesn't feel
70-year-old
well.
stunt double. Um,
Uh,
I wonder if they still do the Count Dooku like wrinkle face, like mask. I suppose they just
hopefully
have
they
to
do
beat
it
them out.
better.
Look, it's fantastic, and seeing Keaton in the Batsuit again is terrific. He occupies a good chunk of the film, and Ezra, despite their legal and emotional, psychological challenges, shall we say,
Mm.
delivers a pretty serviceable performance. I felt emotionally gutted. Like it is dealing with the death of his mother, and that's, I mean, to all of us who have relationships with our mothers, not that kind. Um, it, it,
No,
it's the hardcore.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, if you
that's
can connect
Sophie's
to someone
choice of
emotionally,
do you fix the multiverse and let things proceed as they should, or do you meddle with it and and bring her back. Like it's oh god, it's to wrestle with that notion. It's hardcore.
It's high stakes. High stakes.
But I mean,
So Stephen,
no one's seen this film, so it doesn't matter.
what did you get up to this week? What is your highlights for your past week?
Went away
What did
for a
Elliot do?
wedding and came back
Ooh,
with the best wedding party favor of all. An extremely sick
Jojo.
wife
Oh,
who has like she did one night shift and has been sick for the rest of the week. Poor girl. She's probably given it to our son. I've somehow skirted it. I don't know how. Perhaps my time is coming. I did have a bit of a tickle, but that's wholly unexciting news.
that
How
is
about
pretty
you, Rob?
boring.
How's your past
Yeah, as
week?
I said, it was pretty good. Mission Impossible definitely was the highlight of the week. I've also
Oh
been
yeah,
sick, but yeah, I'm on the mend. And I'm looking forward to. Oh yeah, I'm house sitting for your parents. I don't know if I
right.
mentioned on the show. I'll be there for a month, having
Hmm.
very exciting nostalgia times.
I'll say a highlight of the week has definitely been Cobra Convergence 7, which is currently
Ah,
underway if you've been living under a rock. The full program and the list of contributors and their channel links are in hcc788.com. So check out his website and have a scroll. You might discover some shows. Pardon me. Oh dear, here it comes. You might
uh-oh.
discover some shows and some blogs that you've never passed an eye before. I know I have. First amongst those, I'd never read Snoover's Corner Cafe. It's a name that's
Mm.
been bandied about a couple of times, particularly in Cobra Convergence time. But he recently did his entry, and it was a rundown of the four classic Crimson Guard variants that were in the ARA run: the 1985, the Python Patrol, the Crimson Guard Immortal, and the Battle Corps Crimson Guard. So lovely article, and I'm now a reader. But apart from my regular rotation shows, which have all been doing wonderful jobs with Cobra Convergence 7, I've now acquainted myself with It's Chad, with Jay Bartlett, with Toy Connections. And let me just say that my greatest thrill in Cobra Convergence 7 is not necessarily their produced videos themselves, but just seeing how the GI Joe community kind of knits itself together. Like I've been seeing Chad on Jay's show, I've been seeing Hans on everybody's show, and helping out Toy Connections with his 1983 GI Joe overview, which came out a couple of days ago. I've been seeing Hooded Cobra Commander interviewing everyone. That's also a lovely feature this year. HCC is doing a sort of half-hour interview with everyone. Ours is coming up. It'll be in
Ah,
conjunction with
fantastic.
our day, which is the 22nd. Yeah, just all around good stuff, man. So keep it coming. And if you're listening to this and you haven't taken in a few Cobra Convergence vids yet, I urge you to give it a look. Punch in the search
Yeah,
engine or just head to the website hcc788.com and
it feels like it gets bigger every single year. Like
oh,
seven
absolutely.
just feels bigger than six, bigger than five, bigger than four. I also caught one. You
Oh,
shared it
good.
with us. I think it was Action Robot Punch, I believe.
Yes, how good. So,
So much fun.
well, ARP is renowned for 3D modeling, designing, producing add-on kits for toys, but they also concurrently produce play motion vids and get the whole family involved by the looks. We have a female voice artist, which I'm assuming is perhaps a wife, and certainly a young man manipulating some of the toys and adding some of the sound effects and vocals. So it sounds like Ted's having the time of his life playing with his family. And I know behind the
Absolutely.
scenes, like the kid will lose interest and potter off, and you'll be left with 95% of the shots still to do on your own. But for those 5% where you see him and you hear him playing with GI Joe, these ancient toys for a child, it's very heartwarming. You know,
Heartwarming
lots
and
of
really well done.
oh yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's such a
What's the
tight
plot, Rob?
story and so basically Mindbend has come up with a device that's meant to shrink things. Um,
Mhm.
but it also makes things bigger. So, but Cobra, the higher ups are kind of like, oh, okay, Mindbender, you're not doing your job properly. We brought this guy in to come and help fix this for you. He tested out on a lizard,
Juan
and
Carlo
makes it.
Esposito. I think it's a Breaking Bad figure made by
Yeah.
Reaction, but it's definitely El Pollo Loco. What's his name? I forget the character name, but it's Juan Carlo Esposito for sure. And is it my
So he makes a
imagination, or
lizard
did Ted
gigantic.
like do a Juan Carlo kind of, I don't know, a voice swipe? Sounded like an impersonation a bit.
I think he did try. I mean, he's very good with voices.
So
A lot of the voices are very unique, which I quite enjoyed. And you can kind of follow along with who's speaking most of the time, which I thought was really good.
yeah,
But
hats off.
he makes a Mindbender makes a lizard huge, and then they have to fight it, and it's cool
Not just
because it
any
plays with
lizard.
like scales. It's Gaiju, Godzilla,
Godzilla! Yes, if
Godzilla.
you're a Godzilla fan and you used to play with your Godzilla toys in conjunction with the GI Joe toys, this one's for you, baby. I love that Ted included a little epilogue note, little final credit. We get a mention in there. This isn't an inside job. I would have recommended this even if he hadn't mentioned GI Joburg. But yes, this is
Absolutely.
definitely a love letter to anyone who enjoyed Godzilla toys and GI Joe toys and smashing them together.
Yeah. So long story short, go check out all of HTC's Cobra Convergence 7, but especially this one, I think. So
Rob, you
before we
mentioned
dive into
SDCC. No. I
yes,
want to get some speculation from you. There are
oh,
a bunch of announcements that have been made already about toys that will be available at SDCC. The Chuckles exclusive will be to those
oh
lucky QR code holders and whatnot.
no,
Um, Super
I
7
want
has a
it.
pop-up store next to, well, somewhere close to the venue, to the convention venue, and they will be peddling a Crimson Guardsman Ultimate, which comes with a cup of coffee and a donut, taken from
I
the
saw
episode
that.
Primordial Plot, I believe. But that's
Yeah.
besides the point. What I'm most excited about is a little nugget that I gleaned from the Full Forces interview with Brian Flynn some weeks ago, in which he mentioned that there will be a reaction vehicle release. I don't know
Mm,
if that information has now become out of date because Super 7 is doing a reaction figure pack, like the Terracotta Warriors from Pyramids of Darkness, and
I
those
saw
like
that. Yeah.
skeleton dudes. I don't know if they still are releasing a vehicle, if that's still a well kept secret or not. But last time Super 7 brought that rescue dog sled for Snake
Hmm.
Eyes with the blind old man,
Mush, mush,
which
mush.
it's fun, but not a vehicle in the
Not what
strictest
someone really
sense.
wants.
Not in a toy line of tanks, planes, jetpacks, jets, buggies. So I mean, he moderated our expectations by saying it's not going to be huge, but it is going to be O-ring Joe compatible, which always going to get me excited.
Mm.
Any speculation as to what it could be, or even where it could be pulled from?
It's difficult because whenever I think of like cartoon things, I usually just think of the bigger stuff, like the
Yeah, the
like the
airship.
snakehead jet,
Hmm.
the Cobra helicopter. I can't think of like smaller GI Joe things, but I feel
Those
like it
early
must be a
miniseries
Cobra.
were peppered with them. Kind of blink and you miss
Mm,
it. Almost prototype versions of stuff that would come later. Like I can think of the Joes assaulting the Cobra helicarrier in Mass Device, and Cobra retaliates with their prototype claws in a sense. But the pilot, instead of
mm.
being underslung, the pilot rides on top. So that's a possibility. Also, there was that like
Ah,
floating platform, just basically like target practice, but Cobra troopers on a kind of a floating circular platform when the Joes are
that sounds
assaulting
familiar.
Cobra's castle. But I think my guess, uh, just because it's so iconic, really, is Baroness's like dive bell. She's got this spherical diving pod that the Joes encounter in the worms
Oh
of
yes.
death, I
Was
think,
it, that
whatever,
wasn't the thing
the
with
sea
like
worms.
it didn't have legs, did it? No.
It had 3
I'm
legs,
thinking
yeah,
of
it
something
had
else.
various
Yes.
portholes. It can accept 1 figure, it's got a hatch on top. Like, it's a basic toy, but it is still a vehicle. And you know me, I'm gaga for like undersea equipment. So if
Yep.
it's Cobra and it goes beneath the waves, I'm there like a bear, man. I'll buy it at retail price. I won't even wait for it to go on sale, bro.
I
You
think
know,
that's actually a good speculation. But yeah, I
it's
can't
wishful
think of any of
thinking.
smaller things. I really want them to do big helicopters and shit, you know.
Hmm. Well, Super 7 are crowdfunding currently the what's the thing of omens? The cat's lair. Thundercats Cat's Lair
Ah,
or the 7-inch figures. We're not even talking reaction, we're talking ultimates, the big
good
boys.
lord.
Yeah,
Which they
it's
just introduced to Crimson, what is it, Crimson Guard, like Baroness and Destro? Or what were those?
yes, well, it's a Crimson Baroness, but Destro is actually in his Action Force persona, Red Jackal. So he's got
Ooh,
the red
okay.
shadows detail on his chest, and there's subtle color changes to reflect the Palitoy redeco of Destro that was packaged with the
Okay, I hadn't
hyena,
realized. Ah,
the
but this is going for like a red
lineage.
theme.
Oh, big time, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All in conjunction with Hasbro actually going red as well. They're doing various Crimson versions, the Crimson Bat, the Crimson Viper. Yeah.
Wow,
Okay. Fun time.
we're all seeing red. But speaking of
And by the time this
crowdfunding,
episode comes out, I think the Dragonfly. Were you about to say?
that's exactly what I was about to say. I think we're less than 24 hours to the end at this point.
Mm-hmm. Here comes the spike, I
And
guess.
it's all that I think it's been happening the last day or so. I mean, they hit the female figure I think 2 3 days ago,
Mm-hmm.
and they did announce the third figure, which was Crazy Legs. Am I
Night
right?
Force Crazy Legs.
Night
Yeah.
Force Crazy Legs. And right now, at this very moment, it's standing, well, when I checked 10 minutes ago, 70,986. So we're less than just over 1,000 to go before all three figures are unlocked. I think
Oh
it's going to
yeah.
happen for sure.
Easily. And it makes me angry that people were haranguing other people. Like this, the kind of campaign on social media to get fence sitters to throw money at this was a little bit disgusting. I think that's fan culture at its worst. It's like I want all my fucking toys,
Mm.
man. I want them all. I want them all. You guys, you help me get my toys. I want all the toys. Like, come on, guys. Have a little faith in
But
the
the thing is,
process. This thing will fund.
there's a there's a history, on how these things do track. There's a huge upsurge at the start, that unlocks at least the first tier. There's a lull through the main half of the campaign, and then right at the end there's a spike. It's been proven at least the last 2 to 3 times that this is how it works. People really should wait and see, essentially,
Well, we're
before they
seeing an
start getting
interesting
upset.
slice of the toy collecting community, like these keyboard warriors who, have to pollute social media with their
Get me my toys.
cajoling and yeah, gross, man. You'll get your fucking toys. Sit down, let the process take its time. It's a
Yeah,
funding period. It's not a like a if you fund now, you get this. If you fund later, you won't get it. Like no,
nah.
people have budgeted to come in right at the end, and they will. Simple. Anyway,
They absolutely will, and they have. They proved themselves.
mm, there we go. Robbie, we're here to
Mm.
talk about 4 issues of the comic book.
Oh, oh my
I'm gonna
goodness.
say
I, is at least one
there's
of them
one,
from the classic series?
well, yeah, one from the classic series and 3 from the IDW series because we want to crush those ones a little bit
Whoa.
quicker. But I would say out of these 4, um, 1 is meh, 2 are very good, and the
Mm.
4th is exceptional. And it might
Whoa.
surprise you which one I'm referring to. But you can decide the order, my friend. Which would you like to
Well,
go first?
you've already it's blown me away because I mean, like, I was expecting three to be meh, one to be good. So interesting. I think. let's smash out the classic first. I think that's a
Very
good
good.
place to start because we've been putting off this issue for quite some time. Eagle-eyed listeners will have, if you listen to the end of one of our episodes a couple of months ago, I was very excited. I was like, we named this episode "Thanks for the Memories," but we didn't do it. Thanks for more memories next time.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are finally going to read issue 5. Thanks for the memories. Dun, 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 dun.
Oh my
Classic
goodness.
Larry Hama. If you had said to Larry in 1982, our big box item for the GI Joe toy line is the Mobat tank. It's motorized, it's a battle tank, it accepts one figure, it comes in a big box, it retails for, I don't know, $10, whatever it was back in the day. I suppose I could look it up, but I'm lazy. So, what story are you going to write around this tank? Honestly, I don't think I would have ever guessed that it was gonna be the tank in Central Park. Like that's an exciting prospect right there. I was expecting, conventional tank battle in a battle zone somewhere, tank versus tank warfare, which granted I wouldn't mind seeing anyway. But this is a very quirky story.
Yeah, I mean, we had previously gotten kind of a little taste of tank on tank warfare. I think what was it, issue
Issue 1?
2? No, there was like a little bit when
2?
they were on issue 1. Yeah, where there was a little bit of
Yeah.
a mission, where they were tank on tank. But it's cool because he makes it like everyone wants the Mobat. This is probably the most toyetic, or at least the most advert comic I think he's made up to this point,
Oh
where
yeah.
he's just had fun with the concept, but he's also been like, not only does Joe want the tank, but Cobra wants the tank. No, you want the tank too,
Which is
kids.
pointing it directly exactly at the audience, like you want this tank. But imagine having read this issue, your disappointment when you realize that the toy can only have one occupant, not even an occupant, a kind of a person awkwardly popping out of the top with no real protection whatsoever. Like the Mobat as a toy, it's got its shortcomings, man. I wish it had all this
Mm.
internal space where you could potentially plug in a Pac-Man cartridge. Ha ha ha. Scarlet's so funny. But yeah, the boys are fawning over their tank big time. Clutch, Breaker, Stealer, and Scarlet is like, guys. And you expect perhaps a bit of a chauvinist angle to be taken with Scarlet saying, machines, boring. But no, she does counter with some very combat savvy information saying, like, I prefer when a tank is dug in and laying down heavy cover fire. It's like, okay, Scarlet's still the consummate soldier. She's not about to, like, powder her nose and buff her nails. Like, she's still thinking
Yeah,
about this thing as a useful machine,
she
but
knows
she
what
just
she's talking
doesn't.
about. She just doesn't like this one specifically.
No, she's not about to flick the bean over all the technical details. Like these boys are just wanking over their tank.
Well, then I think Scarlet would prefer the toy version because there are no details on the inside.
But yeah, look, I used to kind of invent for myself what the interior of a vehicle would be like long before I owned it. So when
Mm.
I looked at the European 1991 catalog and saw the Cobra Bug, boy oh boy, did I invent like the internal spaces. In my mind, the whole thing was like the Millennium Falcon. Like you could walk from one
Ah,
end of it to the other with different sort of chambers. So there was mild disappointment on Christmas morning 1993 when I got it and discovered, no, they're all just sort of hatches that you can
nothing's
put a figure
connected.
into. Yeah. But in much the
But then
same
you see
way, the
the
Mobat tank, like you
yeah,
see that it almost has a room inside where people can stand up. What? Excellent.
makes no sense.
If and only.
Bastards.
Yeah, no tank has that kind of interior space. Still, it makes for an interesting sort of science fiction environment. I credit Don Perlin, the artist, for embellishing the interior of the tank a bit. But what happens in this issue, Rob?
So what happens in this issue is that GI Joe just got their brand new high-tech tank, and it's so cool that even Cobra wants it. So Cobra hatches a very elaborate plan to kind of grab the tank as this kind of like rolling as part of a big marching band, sort of, I don't know, 4th of July parade of some sort. And crazy shenanigans happen from there, and we even get General Hawk at the end. Not General Hawk, General Flag showing up in one of these early issues, which is quite cool. Cobra Commander learning how to do some shooting in this issue too. He's very hands-on.
It sets up that trope, I think. Yeah, he's cutting down targets. Eagle-eyed viewers might see that Snake Eyes is colored to look like his kind of BMX sticker. I mean, there was a sticker at the time with a kind of Snake Eyes mold, but they gave him a green outfit with light blue highlights, which
Oh goodness,
charming. I think they
that's
have
wrong.
made a custom figure of that. Maybe Black Major have, but yeah, it does exist now. It's kind of fun. Even giving him a code name, which it escapes me now. But if you know it and you're in the comment section, let us know what the BMX Snake Eyes figure is called. But yeah, I like the fact that it seems just like with the Trojan Gambit that Cobra is within driving distance of GI Joe's base. Like they're very close. They must be somewhere on the eastern seaboard, and we get to see this elaborate means whereby the film of the message, the secret message about the tank. I mean, that's wonderfully convoluted spy stuff. But yeah, we definitely see that Cobra's in the catacombs somewhere in North America. They're right beneath our feet.
They're right there. They're hidden just like G.I. Joe is, and they're both hidden in places where neither, the other doesn't know where.
Baroness kind of is a bit more in this episode, this issue. Like even in her illustration, she doesn't. She's always kind of with the Cobra Commander, and she seems more competent than him. But when it comes down to it, when Cobra Commander is facing down General Flag, Baroness kind of doesn't figure into the equation at all. Because yes, it does come down to a duel between these two commanders, these two opposing top men. But yeah, both, yeah, they don't have any intervention from their subordinates, which is, I suppose it's nice to see these guys go toe to toe. But it would have been nice if Baroness had been, she just pulled the machine gun out and sprayed General Flag down and said, "Come on,
Everyone down.
let's go."
Time to go home.
When you need someone
Back
to
to your
pull the
cave.
trigger. I can't believe how much the generals on the reviewing stand, the one, I think it's the Navy guy, the guy in white, looks like Brian Cox. No,
He
Brian
does.
Cox in 1982 would have been in his 30s, I imagine. But this
He
looks
would
like
not
him
be this
from.
beefy.
He looks like Brian Cox from. I don't know if you remember the Nuremberg trials with one of the Baldwins. But yeah,
Yes.
if you're struggling to remember, Brian Cox played Stryker in X-Men 2.
And he was in the Bourne movies, I think, as well.
All right. Similar character
The
type, no
later
doubt.
ones. Yeah.
I love the humor. And this one is full of zingers, but like we've got the Springfield marching band, which the tank is driving behind, and they're complaining loudly about how it sounds like they learned to play their instruments yesterday, which is kind of a wink at the audience saying, yeah, these guys are not drum majorettes and marching band members. They're actually Cobra agents in disguise. But Steeler just showing off how much of a sort of blue collar mechanical man he is. He hasn't really noticed the music at all. He's a tanker. He doesn't have an ear for marching bands. But what he does have an eye for is the cheerleader's butt. I mean, it's a lovely little detail, man. He's got the targeting system of the tank zeroed in on her butt. Lovely.
Priorities are straight. That's good.
Let's just say that I'm fulfilling an obligation of a military commander to keep abreast of the rearguard situation.
Uh,
Zing. My other favorite line, oh, if we could skip all the way to the end. So the whole time, Clutch is zeroing in on some kind of signal between one of the attacking bandies and the reviewing stand, because he
Mm.
believes Cobra Commander must be close by to give orders. And then he eventually, when faced with the reviewing stand, he plows the tank into it to try and expose the commander. But he tells the other two to jump off the tank so he can do it and they can cover the prisoners. And Breaker says, "I don't know what you're up to, Clutch, but I'll put a good word in for you at the court martial." And Steeler replies with, "Not me. I always said Clutch was a few chairs missing at home." A few chairs missing at home. Like that. I've never heard that one before.
Never heard that line either.
So good. And every time I read this, something new comes out to me, pops out at me. This time, however, it was a little typo. I don't know if this is a rarity with Larry Hama scripts, or if this is just something that happens regularly and I'm only now kind of coming wise to it. But
Oh, I see what you mean.
says,
There's one too many R's in that rumble. Gosh darn
no, I'm
it.
not talking about the sound effect.
Oh,
Flag is on the reviewing stand shouting at Clutch, saying, "Hit the brake, Clutch, hit it!" Except it's spelled BREAK.
oops.
Unless that's a localization, like unless the Americans also spell like brake with BREAK. Like, do you think it's like
Maybe?
color and honor and other things that are spelled differently in North America? But yeah, no, it
It could
should be
be.
BRAKE. Whatever. I was just
Unless
very
he wants
proud
him to
that I
like
saw that.
literally break the clutch, and he wants to like literally break it. Break it!
Hit
Don't you
the
dare
brake.
slam! Hit the
Hit
brake.
hit the brake. Hit the brake on this stand. There's a brake already. If you hit it in that exact place, it'll come down. Nah, look,
Nah, I think you're right. But kudos to the guys back in the 80s. I mean, there really are very few lettering problems in most North American comic books I've found.
Well, stick
It's
around.
very rare.
Love me a good typo. Yeah, look, this issue is great fun.
it's
It's a nice
it's
bottle
it's
issue
awesome.
once again. I do have a question for you though, Rob. So,
Mm,
as we've already mentioned, Cobra Commander is underneath General Flag and the other assembled command staff's feet,
bold
which
move.
is an interesting kind of rug pull. It's like, whoa, we were underneath you this whole time. Cobra Commander pulls a gun on Flag. Flag pulls a gun on the Commander, but Cobra Commander's got innocence in his vicinity. He's got this Girl Scout group very conveniently assembled around him. And as I've mentioned before, Baroness at this point becomes completely inept. She has nothing to do. She should have pulled a gun and just shot Flag. But no, she lets the commander lead the charge, and the commander fires almost point blank range and clips Flag on the head.
Mm,
I mean, we could get into whether or not Cobra Commander wanted to take out Flag or wanted him to survive and just have a kind of a wound, a kind of a mark to say, I can get you anytime. But I'm curious, and they hang a lantern on this in the issue. I think Clutch says that, Flag, you're the captain of the pistol team. You should have been able to hit Cobra Commander without endangering any of those Girl Scouts. Why? Why then do you suppose Flag pulled his punch and didn't shoot?
I think even with all that training, I mean, he's a general. You know, he probably hasn't had a lot of active use of firearms for quite some time, I'm guessing. You know, like field work. So I think he'd rather err on the side of caution, generally speaking, rather than just like, I suppose, relying on years old uh, expertise, I'd say.
Yeah. I think that's where my mind went to first. Now that I'm thinking about it, though, we do have a shot to close out the scene with the Girl Scouts looking kind of shell shocked, kind of. They're staring each other down. They're looking. One is kind of reassuring the other almost, and they're in the foreground. And in the background, you've got Clutch and Flag, and Clutch is asking, like, "Why didn't you shoot? You know, you could have hit the commander without hitting any of these girls." And Flag says, "Yeah, well, that's why we're the good guys." Clutch is like, "Huh?" Flag is like, never mind. So clearly, Flag is operating on a maybe an intellectual level, a few steps higher than Clutch at this point. Clutch is like, why didn't you just shoot him? You didn't even release your safety. And Flag's like, you know what? If I'd gunned him down in front of these girls, they probably would have been scarred for the rest of their lives. So he's thinking almost about the psychological impact of this violence on these girls. That's where I'm thinking now. That's where my head is at.
I think that makes more
Still,
sense. It's not just him not trusting in his abilities. I think that makes sense.
still, it's, I mean, a trade-off to having been able to end the conflict then and there. I just it hangs a lantern perhaps on the level of thought and consideration that Larry's bringing to the story. Like, sure, you're gonna paint yourself into a bit of a corner. You've got these two guys staring each other down with guns drawn. Someone's gonna get shot, right? Well,
Yeah.
Flag gets clipped, and Cobra Commander gets off unscathed because of this reason. Because he doesn't want Flag to just gun a person down with innocents watching.
Yeah.
Which,
Actually, he would definitely do it, but not in front of children. So I think that has more to say
compassionate
about the
stuff, man.
character. Absolutely.
We learned a bit more about Flag, and that's my takeaway from this read, is that I'm kind of more on board with General Flag than I ever have been. He only kind of really has a starring role toward the end of the issue, and he never really gets much before his exit from the series. But this is his moment. This is his only moment in retrospect. And so I'm kind of hanging a bit more importance on it now. It's nice to see. Nice to get an idea of who this man was. Let's rate it, Robbie.
I think overall it's a really fun issue. As always, I prefer the more bottled issues, the one shots. And it's a cool concept. I like the cleverness of the tank drivers. And featuring Flag is pretty awesome. I'd probably give it. I'll probably go with like a 3.5. I'm gonna go 3.5. I think it's really good, but it's not like the top issue ever.
So say we both then. I'll do a 3.5 as well. Really enjoyable. But I need to moderate a previous score. Because
Oh,
I think
interesting.
what did I give issue 4, Operation Wingfield? Because in the cold light of day, that is not an issue that I will likely pick up and read over this, for instance.
I think we devoted a whole episode to it. I think I mean, me and Paul were pretty big about it. I don't think you gave it a 5, but you might have given it a 4.5.
Yeah,
I
I'm
would
gonna have
check, but
to
unfortunately,
reduce it to a
power's out.
3.5 because
Ooh.
yes, Rob is literally in the dark.
Eh,
I'm gonna say that 4 and 5 are both 3.5 issues. Really
uh,
enjoyable, but not ones that I will in a pinch, pick up and read.
yeah, I
Noted.
think out of the two, this one is more. You can come back to it more often, for sure. There's humor. There's it's more of a story. I mean, not that the other one isn't a story, but that one feels more serious in the way that kind of like handles its subject matter. Yeah, for sure. This
And if
one's
you love the
definitely
Mobat
come back to
tank,
it.
this is the issue you want to read because you get all that internal detail that you need to kind of use your imagination to fill in. Yeah. Oh
Absolutely.
man, the Mobat. Potentially a Transformers crossover. I mean, let me not spread disinformation, but
Uh-oh.
what do you think about a Mobat Optimus Prime?
I think that could be really cool, actually. Um,
Hmm.
it's definitely one of the more standout earlier vehicles from the GI Joes. So I think you could do a Mobat as Optimus Prime, and it's beefy enough that and it's also kind of all big one piece, and there's not much spaces to fit figures into it, so you can actually make it more transformable robot. Then you don't have to worry so much about how do we make these seats fold away? How do we make these into the feet? I think
And
that could work.
class-wise, it would put Prime on a similar toe to Megatron or the Mega Hiss. Like the Hiss tank and the Mobat are classic enemies, even though like seeing Prime as a battle tank, it's a bit of a stretch for most Transformers fans. But for Joe
Yeah.
fans, it makes perfect sense because there's similar class, these two vehicles.
A more important question is, what do we name it? I mean, up to this point, it's been pretty easy to kind of come up with mash up names. But Mobat and Optimus Prime. I mean, Pribat, Mo Prime.
I'll just call him the Opti Tank.
Opti Tank. Okay.
Opti Tank. Mobat Tank. I don't know. Let's move on to a modern comic book. So I tasked the boys, now just Rob, with reading issues 287, 288, and 289 of the IDW series because these effectively are each one-shots.
Well, definitely one of them is absolutely a one-shot. Well, the other two are one-shots, but they kind of like they are building up to the story that is coming after this, but they kind of like take specific each issue is a specific perspective from certain characters, and it features them as the characters kind of like helping build the story that he's telling about the Cobra Island casino. And it's kind of cool to kind of see like different perspectives, different angles of how GI Joe is so big that you can have multiple stories building up a larger story using different characters.
So we've got an issue that features Dawn and Helix, and they are tasked with running intel on a Revanche corporation or Revanche robotics lab. We've got a one-shot featuring the introduction of Lieutenant Falcon, and we've got a one-shot featuring the newbies of GI Joe in IDW, which is Black Hat, Sherlock, Molto, and
Mongoose.
Sorry. Pause
Although
for
I feel like
effect.
only two of them are really featured, or at least had like a lot of lines. Not that I actually know which one is which.
Well, let's see if I can help you out. Should we do 287 then?
Hell yeah. Let's go
Hells
forward.
to the yeah. All right, 287 is that same issue with Mongoose, Black Hat, Sherlock, and Molto. If none of those names mean anything to you, well, step a little closer, dear listener. We're going to get into the nuts and bolts of this issue. Rob, what happened, buddy?
Oh my goodness. So in this issue, a group of newbies led by Outback are infiltrating Cobra Island to do a recce to kind of see the lay of the land, as it were, like what is happening on Cobra Island at this point. It kind of feels like they haven't been to Cobra Island in a while, and they've detected activity on the island, so they want to kind of have an idea of like what is Cobra up to now. So they do discover that Cobra is setting up a casino, and they feel they need to really know what's going on inside the casino. So they infiltrate and they download a ton of information from the new brainwave scanner. And yeah, that kind of leads into the following issues that come up, at least the bigger story that happens. And we do learn a little bit more about two of the characters, I believe Black Hat and Molto, maybe?
No, Mongoose.
Sure. Mongoose.
Yes, Mongoose is
the prodigy.
The guy with the fez who witnessed some kind of racial slander during 9/11, and Black Hat experienced a different kind of discrimination. She was a real overachiever, signed up for the advanced computer class, and when she walked in, it was just filled with boys.
Dirty boys.
And they were like, "What are you doing here, little girly? You sure you're in the right class?" Love the fact that she's wearing a Spock cosplay outfit.
Yes. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really good. For the second, I had to check like if the sort of the cuff braids were correct. But yes, Spock did have the two zigzaggy cuffs Kirk has 3, sort of a thin one in between. So yes, the colorist nailed it. That is definitely Spock's blue
Unless she's a fan of
sweater.
McCoy and she wanted to be a doctor. But Spock definitely fits more
Oh
thematically
shit!
with her. Well,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
thing is,
yeah, yeah.
McCoy is more doctory. Thematically, Spock makes more sense because he's the science officer and she loves the science.
This issue, full disclosure, is a return to rare form for me. I love it. I love, love, love it. An infiltration mission to Cobra Island, spectacular. But that's
It's a
just
lot
where
of
it
fun.
starts. Billy Penn
Yeah, but it's
does this one shot.
very
He
good
doesn't
art.
do any other issues. The art is incredible. This guy is amazing.
He gets the
Uniforms,
vehicles, which I really love.
vehicles, characters, the sort of the scratchiness of the art style, like it's action packed, it's exciting, it's just so nice.
He's very dynamic, and it's cool because it does move the plot forward, the overall arching plot, but it's kind of um it's couched within these kind of like very cool military moments where it's the mechanics, it's the nitty gritty of like how they're getting onto the island, which I really enjoy the first couple of pages of this issue, and then kind of like
Mm.
approaching the island.
All those tropes that we
Great
know and
fun.
love from GI Joe, but like just dialed up to 11, and there's nothing that drops the ball for me. Like it's all cool.
Mm.
Yeah, very, very good. I am going to draw attention to the B cover for the issue, which is also by Billy Penn,
Oh,
the interior artist. He had time to do, in like famous GI Joe style, a cross section of the pit, but
it's
like
lovely.
it's also a story within itself. It's bringing the newbies into the pit for the first time. Uh, I think it's Duke and Scarlet that are guiding them down the equipment lift through the pit, and the various levels, and then announcing, "Welcome to the pit."
The bird.
And we see some terrific vehicle. We've got the Warthog, we've got the Havoc, we've got the Defiant Launch Complex.
So
Amazing.
you're telling me this is the only time that Billy Penn did art for the IDW run? I'm very
Hmm.
sad about this because he's really fantastic.
I've had, through Talking Joe, the delight of interviewing the guy. Because not only did he do
Hmm.
this, but during the pandemic and lockdown, he and his kids made a stop motion one-to-one adaptation of the silent issue. And it is on YouTube and it is fantastic. I'll put a link in the description, but yes, Penn Productions is the YouTube channel. And
That's
I
so
mean, it's
cool.
so good, so good. Like just a mixture of techniques to bring the comic to life, and it's excellent. Not only did they do that, but he did a kind of a side by side comparison to the panels. So you can either watch the video itself or the video with a side by side flip through the comic book. But yeah, man, the
Oh,
guy's
heck yeah.
brilliant.
Because like
And
I don't know what the future is of any of the artists that worked on with Larry on the IDW comic books. Because at least looking at he's working with soon on 301. I feel like it's new. They've hired artists that are associated with Skybound,
mhm.
rather than people that had previously worked with Larry at IDW. So I do hope that some of the artists he had previously worked with do get a chance to draw more comic books, especially Billy Penn. Actually, all three of these artists I felt were quite strong. Or they had strengths. I think the strongest for me is Billy Penn. But
Mm.
both the artists on the next 2 issues are very good, like with expressions. Like they have very expressive characters, which I quite enjoyed. And often like the tech stuff was also pretty good as well. But I think this is the strongest overall.
Just getting back to the vehicles, they're all so perfect. I think Billy clearly has a good collection of toys. Um, Either that or just a fabulous understanding of how these things are made up. And we have a cool, it might be a debut of this toy, but the Steel Crusher APV. Okay, maybe no, it might have found its way into previous IDW books, but like most of the vehicles are classics like Wales, Mambas, Morays, but then he mixes in this cool moment where And once again, the details are so good. Like the patrols during the day are random and they're conducted by Vipers on ferrets, but at night they use Steel Crusher APVs with like passive
Night
infrared
vision
sensors.
goggles.
So
Yeah.
good. Awesome details. But it's also the perfect infiltration vehicle because it's kind of enclosed. Like the Steel Crusher, if you're not aware, dear listener, is from Rise of Cobra, the movie. It's used in that Paris pursuit scene where Snake Eyes is like underneath it and on top of it, and like ridiculous action. But it's basically like a tricked out Cobra black Hummer with a
Mm.
big aggressive bull bar on the front. They made a toy. It's okay. You can access the front two seats. The back is kind of given over to a gimmick. It's got various pop-out missiles and hatches and whatnot. But here they've embellished it slightly. Billy Penn's added a top turret, put a Night Viper in there. He's got the Steel Crusher kind of driver, which looks like Motor Viper, but I think they call it Nitro Viper. Anyway, and then a regular Viper. And these three uniforms are used by the Joes as their kind of infiltration getup, which is just cool, man. It's cool right the way through. And
It's a
delightfully,
lot of
like
fun. I
Black
think
Hat is using the the Viper uniform, and she's noticeably like diminutive. Very nice little
mm,
detail there. Oh, I love it.
very cool
These
issue.
three Vipers like walking through a
It's
deserted, like under construction casino after dark. Like all the human staff have gone home or clocked off, and they find themselves face to face with the brainwave scanner. And Black Hat's like, yeah, this is exactly what I need. Jackpot. I can download as much intel as possible from this device. Um, and there's a surprising twist. Did you see it coming that they'd be confronted by Mindbender and Laura 347 and the Techno Vipers and like bluff their way out? Like
I
I was
didn't
like,
see that coming.
oh shit, this is gonna be a firefight. But no,
They're
they
dead.
managed to convince Mindbender that we're just here sweeping for extra security, in case there are any bugs.
Oh, thank goodness. Well, he's just so focused on telling Laura about his fantastic machine. Oh wait, no, that's not this issue. That's a couple of issues to come.
Yeah, we're starting to see the rot set in. You were not a fan of how many times these scenes kind of repeated. But something I've just
Thankfully,
noticed in the
no
art.
repetition.
No,
Mm.
of course. This is the first time. So, well, the first time chronologically, but it's not the first time for you, Rob. Shame. You've been doing these in
Yes,
reverse order. I've just noticed something that sells the scene even harder because when Mindbender and Laura arrive, you can see that Black Hat and Malta, is it Malta? No, it's
mongoose.
Mongoose are kind of caught in the crosshairs, and there's a Techno Viper almost covering them. He's got his weapon kind of raised slightly, but in the
Mm.
background, we've got Outback wearing a Night Viper outfit, and he's covering them. So if this shit goes south, he's ready to spray down Laura, Dr. Mindbender, and the two Techno Vipers.
He has this.
Fortunately, it doesn't come down to that. But like, it's clever. It's tactical. It's like, yeah, these guys are gonna um, distract and keep Mindbender occupied while I cover him in case they start going for their guns.
It's very
Oh,
smart.
love
This
this
is.
episode issue.
I think this is probably well, so far, I think probably one of my favorite issues from the latter run of GI Joe.
Hmm.
Um, it really does no wrong. Like it just sets up, it teases what's happening next. You kind of get some idea of like why they're doing a casino. Because up to this point, I was very like, why is there a casino? But it sounds like obviously some sort of like huge money laundering scheme. I still don't understand how they came up with the idea of the casino. Maybe that's explained in you know previous issues. But I suppose I'll see when I get there.
I'm gonna give this a 4.5. I really enjoyed it. So
Oh,
setting a high
that's
watermark for
crazy.
the modern GI Joe comic. Yeah, love
That's
it.
absolutely insane. I'd probably say the same actually. 4.5. I mean, I'm not just saying it to copy you. Actually, I'm going to moderate and go to a 4. I think I would enjoy it
Hmm.
even more if it was more recognizable characters. Like if I knew everyone. and I didn't have to like sit there and be like, who is this again? Who's this guy again? I like they're led by Outback, but yeah, I think if I'd had a little bit more time with these characters, I would probably enjoy the issue even more.
It's astounding how much happens in 20 pages. I mean,
Yeah,
on the
that's
reread that I did last night, I only just then caught the fact that the 3 Cobras that they steal uniforms from, they take them prisoner. They bring them back to the
yeah,
whale. Like,
yeah,
and that's
because they're
smart
like,
because you don't want them blabbing to the rest of Cobra Command. Better to make them disappear than to make them say, "Oh, we just had a run with the Joes."
yeah, because
And if
that
you shoot
ruins
them
the
dead, they're
entire
also
recce.
gonna, yeah, yeah.
Mm,
There's a moral
it's
question about
smart.
shooting them dead, but also, it doesn't achieve your goal any better than taking them captive because they're still going to
Yeah,
be missed.
it's easier to get rid of living bodies than dead bodies, I think.
Really? Tell that to the taxpayer who has to underwrite their prison costs. Okay, well, that's getting us off to a bang. What's
Absolutely.
next?
Next is 288,
Mm.
special mission introducing a brand new character to GI Joe by the name of Lieutenant Falcon. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
this guy's going to go places. He's a very cool
Yeah.
character.
He's got a bright future ahead of him. All
I
right.
what I really like about this issue, before even anything happens, we describe it, is that it actually somehow fits into the continuity, or at least it feels like it fits into the continuity of the cartoon
Mm,
somehow. That's kind
okay.
of the vibes that
Explain.
I get from it. Well, because I mean, it's him. It's Law and Order. Is one of the other people that he rescues at the end of the issue, and it's who's the other guy? Is that Grand Slam?
Fast draw.
Fast Straw. I always get them confused.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, he's the one that doesn't quite fit Fast Straw. But with at least 2 of them being there, they'd be like new recruits, and that's kind of like the situation of going into the GI Joe, cartoon movie, where Falcon as well as Law and Order are brand new recruits. It is Law and Order, isn't it? Oh God,
Yeah. No, you're
okay,
right.
good.
I
Not
just
going
found a bit of
crazy.
connective tissue that also makes it seem like it hooks up with the cartoon, even though Larry Harmer, by his own admission, never watched it. Um, the young Vincent Falcone has a scene with a soldier, and he's
Mm,
reflecting on his father dying after exposure to Agent Orange all the way in Vietnam. That it took 20
mm-hmm.
years to kill him, but eventually it got him. So that leaves Falcone's mom a widow. Um, if she had met Duke's dad, then perhaps they became
Ah,
married, and that's why they're brothers. A sort of step
interesting.
brother. Yeah. So Duke and
I mean,
Falcon.
it's. I don't think it's on purpose in any way whatsoever. But it feels like it somehow connects to the cartoon in some way, which I found absolutely wild. That it kind of,
You're getting
it's
creepy,
like, okay,
Rob, but I like it. I'm here for it, man.
so yeah, so this is basically a origin story for Falcon and showing off his introduction and how he joined the GI Joe team. He basically gets sent out. There's some sort of conflict between 2 countries, Barovia and I think it's Fokokukuland.
Mm-hmm.
Fokokuka, Fokokukuland. And he has to rescue a couple of US soldiers.
I've
2 of
mentioned the
them
witty
being GI
wordplay of
Joes
Volker
also.
Land to you before, have I, Rob?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cloud
So,
Cuckoo Land. Ha ha ha.
yes.
Mm.
So he is tasked with rescuing these soldiers before they're killed. And yeah, that's the issue. Somehow he manages to do the impossible, rescue soldiers from a base that
Simple. Open
is.
and shut.
It's so straightforward. And once
Mm.
again, I mean, the artist on this one is Cuba Ball. I like his kind of more rougher style, but he has very expressive faces, which I really enjoyed with his work on this issue. Um, I like that you can really see like what the characters are thinking. Um, and yeah, it's actually really cool. And I like also he differentiates you. Okay, I mean, I didn't know it was Frostraw, but I knew it was a GI Joe.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was Grand. I don't know why I always think everyone's Grand Slam, but you can differentiate between the different characters.
I like the fact that you see costume elements that set him up as fast draw. Like if you know the figure, you know that
Yeah.
he's got a very kind of textured, like undershirt or armored vest, onto which the sort of the red portions clip onto. Well, I mean, they don't practically do that on the figure, but you could imagine this as a costume. Like he'd have this kind of blast protective smock,
Yeah.
and then everything else
There's a
is
reason
worn
why
on
he
top
has
of
it.
it. Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, but they do add a little bit of a hint later on when he is picking up the anti-aircraft weapon, and he's like, "Yeah, I can shoot anything, like anything that goes boom." What is he
I know
actually
my stuff.
like? We can get because of course the climactic chase with the prisoners. Um, they tear off through the swamp on this kind of like eight-wheel vehicle.
Yeah, a
Looks
little
very
ATV.
And there's a Stinger missile launcher in the back. And Foster, yeah, he actually does name drop himself. He says, "I'm a qualified expert in anything that has a rocket in it. When I was assigned to the third herd, they called me Fostraw."
Yeah.
The origin of a code name right there. Third herd is the third armored division. That's good old Sergeant Waltz, Tom Waltz, the editor. There's some instances where I think he's asleep on the job. Like there was some acronym in one of these comic books that didn't have an editor's note. I was like, I really would have knowing what the hell Larry's trying to say there, because I mean I wasn't going to look it up, but yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
did.
don't remember the specific one, but there was one, I think. Yeah. I
Mm,
was also like, I don't know what BERT means
RP,
or something
yeah,
or
yeah.
something like that. Ugh. Fun issue. Once again, it's a one shot. It sets up Falcon as being a very cool character. And the kind of like shit that he thinks about and is able to do to get stuff done. And it also makes
Which
all
flies
three
in the
characters
face of
seem
his
very
comic
cool.
book appearance, Rob. I mean, let me get this right.
His
Flies in the
cartoon
face of his
appearance.
cartoon appearance. Yeah, Falcon in the movie is a dipshit. This guy's the man.
Yeah. Which doesn't seem right, which mean also I mean that's just us making, I think, the connection to the cartoon.
Here he's pretty grim. He gets the job done. Perhaps, to its credit, the
Right?
cartoon at least made Falcon memorable. He's not just like the best of the best of the best with honors, sir. He's being a bit reckless, being this kind of cocky braggart and womanizer. Yeah, that scene with Jinx in the motor pool did not age well, but maybe to its credit, the cartoon at least set him up as someone memorable with an arc, whereas this guy, he's fully formed, man. He's forged in steel. I like it. I wonder, am I alone in the stream now? Is Rob still there? Possibly. Probably. Nope. Ladies and gentlemen, load shaming has taken its toll. Rob is positioned very precariously at his window, using his data connection to maintain the podcast. But I feel like perhaps his connection has worn out. I'm still seeing him in StreamYard, but not getting any audio. So I guess I'll close out the show. I'm gonna rate this issue. Give it let's do 3.5. Didn't love it as much as the previous, but it's still a very serviceable issue. Perhaps a bit too simple a story to need to pick up again. Certainly, if I wanted to read more Falcon material, get some flesh to the bones, this is absolutely now recommended reading. It's essential reading, but not a tale that I feel does anything particularly new. Oh, I think Rob's back. Hello,
Hey,
Rob.
there I am. Hello,
Wow,
hello.
I thought I was gonna have to do it solo for the last issue.
No
Shall
ways.
we speak to this last
Never
issue?
leave
I
you
gave this
alone.
one 3.5, by the way.
3.5, I think that's fair. I
Hmm.
think it's a fun issue overall. It's a bottle issue again, and it's cool to kind of like fill in, I suppose, a gap in the history of Falcon. He's definitely a badass. Yeah, I'd probably give it a 3.5 as well. Actually, I'm definitely, that's what I'm giving it.
Nice. It does dovetail with issue 60, which is the Todd McFarlane penciled issue, which debuted these guys in the Marvel comic. So that's their very next
Ah,
assignment. They join up with Chuckles on his mission to safeguard these like warheads that are stationed, like positioned in this like shell town, this facade beachfront property. And they're
oh my
told that
goodness, this is
they are
even.
GI Joes, but turns out that
Ah,
Hawk had no idea who these guys were.
what that even makes more of a cartoon connection. Chuckles was also a new guy in the cartoon, in the movie.
Mm-hmm. The rawhides. Yep. All right. Let's do issue 289.
289. With art by Casey Maloney. Very competent artist as well. I enjoyed their work on the issue overall. Also very good with expressions, facial expressions. I always enjoy artists that are able to express well. And once again, a very straightforward story. It's Dawn, Moreno, and Helix are going to investigate revenge to kind of like see what's going on there. Why is Cobra approaching revenge? Like, what do they need them for? And they're in the town basically, and having to deal with the locals.
Law enforcement et al. Of course, this is the debut of the like fembot revenge battle android troopers. They're all the sort
Yes,
of
which is
the
featured heavily in the later stories.
they're made out to be extremely potent combatants in this issue,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm.
become the disposable bad guys of tomorrow. But I'm gonna hang a lantern quickly on the Cobra Aspid, which has become the official name, at least in the comic books. Um, and I'm just wanting to remind everyone that this name that has become canonized is actually a fan name.
Mm.
Simply because, I mean, this amazing custom that is featured on histank.com, which debuted in 2009, which even had dedicated box art for it. This is the Cobra Aspid that I think has found its way into the reference material that IDW then give out to artists. So when Larry
Yeah.
mentions the Cobra transport chopper, I don't even know if he says Aspid in his scripts, but basically this is what they are given to draw. And
Yeah.
it makes me laugh every time I see it because unlike the classic Cobra chopper from Michael Golden's yearbook that Rod Wiggum then adopted in his art, the Aspid is based on the Chap May, like kind of Sikorsky sky crane, but chibified. It's got a very chibi
Yeah.
propeller. Its proportions are very foreshortened and stubby. It's not aesthetically as pleasing as the classic Cobra chopper, even though it does a good job of approximating the furniture of it. Um, I don't like it, man. It's hilarious. This is a Chap May chibi helicopter, and now it's the helicopter forever. I don't know.
Hey, what it looks
But
like, I
hopefully
think.
that reference material has been lost with the
Well, I
moving
think they've
to
they've taken
Skybound.
liberties with it in the comic books.
Yes, in Billy Penn's issue, he pencils it and extends the
He's
proportions
gonna
to
have to
make it
start all
more
over
like
again. He's gonna have to get.
the Sikorsky Sky Crane. But yeah, in this
Mm.
issue, we see it in its stunted proportions. Not a fan. I'm going to keep reminding people that this is not the classic Cobra helicopter.
Well, still, kudos to the guy who invented that. He
Mm.
must be feeling very chuffed that it is
Broker
the
something. I need
go-to.
to find his name. I was on the page yesterday, and I flipped off it foolishly. But yes,
How
I'll get that
dare.
name while you talk about this issue, Rob.
Well, I think it's a fairly straightforward issue. It's probably well, I'm going to have to say it's my least favorite of these. You don't get much. I mean, they say it like features the characters, but you don't get much that they do in the issue that kind of like warrants them necessarily having to be the featured characters in the issue. What happens is very straightforward. They essentially watch what Dr. Mindbender is coming here for, which is just to get this new generation of revenge bats designed to be covert and to be used as the face of the Cobra casino empire. It's very, very straightforward. It's very like by the numbers, but not in like a fun GI Joe like military by the numbers. It's more like we have to show like where these things come from, and this is how we're going to do it. Probably the most fun. Sorry, I was laughing as Stephen is showing the pages from the comic book. We get a very cool picture of Dawn kind of like racing away with the car, and kind of like a cool like horse rearing back position.
Popping a wheelie. Yeah, that is a bit extreme. I've seen monster trucks do that move, basically like tail slap.
And like also like the subplot with the police officer is kind of slightly unbelievable, because like he's chasing them, he's kind of like trying to get them to do what he wants them to do, but he never calls it. He calls it in, but nothing really comes from that. I suppose everything that happens too quickly for him to ever get back up, because they literally do fire what, from his perspective, does look like a missile within a built up civilian area. And the fact that they are dressed the way they are dressed, which is their very unique costumes, and one of them is wearing a visor, they don't look as military as believably military, I think. So his response, I think, would have been even more extreme if it were to actually be believable. But it's kind of like, yeah, it's a by the numbers issue. It's basically setting up, where Mindbender gets these robots from. It's kind of like a very much a filler issue.
Sadly, the stink of revenge, and you will come to know it, my friend. Every time this third faction is introduced, I just kind of lose interest very quickly, and I know I'm not the only one. And in a sense, Larry was prescient, because nowadays AI is like the big bad, but revenge isn't presented to us like that.
They kind
I
of
mean,
they're powerful, but they're also idiots, and the characters in the universe realize that themselves. Because like Dawn and Helix are infiltrating this thing, and they're very surprised there's no like cameras and other things up on top of the dome of this thing. And I think Helix or Dawn is like, oh yeah, no, but yeah, they don't think like people, so they wouldn't think to put stuff like that up here. She's like, oh yeah, you're right, okay.
Now, do you think revenge is built to be inept then? Because they're always going on about how they're the biggest, baddest, and like this is the most sophisticated and most unbeatable version. And then the Joes kind of very handily, flesh and blood and a lot of training, are able to dispose of these high-tech assailants. Like, it makes me think maybe there's an in-joke that's being played here somewhere. The blue
I
ninjas
think for
aren't all
sure
that. Yeah.
they definitely, it does feel like that. I mean, the characters themselves are kind of like, they take them seriously, but there are aspects of them that they recognize that are limits that they cannot, for themselves realize what's going on.
They're always
There's also
scheming,
like
but
a
it
weird,
always goes nowhere. I don't know. I
yeah,
don't know. Until they're used to do something really clever, I'm never gonna be on board. They're all just hot air, man.
yeah. And I mean, there's some sort of interesting, and it wasn't interesting to me, but there's like there's a subplot that's set up where the training for the robots, the kung fu training, somehow relates to Helix's mother. And what I know of the following issues that hasn't been answered yet. So he's kind of like set it up, but in a very uninteresting way. So I'm not sure why that was introduced.
I'm gonna venture a guess that Helix's mom somehow became a blue ninja. Because they are cyborgs. They're kind of, they strip away their human parts. So at least that's the inception idea of the blue
mm,
ninjas, that they were all human once and have, what is it, ship of Theseus, basically made transfers into being fully, robotic, just stripped away all their meat piece by piece.
mm.
Either way, I don't know. I can't really pass much on this because it bores me. And the kind of the combat, the signature move that tips Helix off that her mother's ninja training has somehow gone into this new fembat, is this awkward like split leg maneuver to take out
Yeah.
opponents on both sides, and then the knife hand to take out the third, and then the swooping
Wow.
beheading kick to take out the fourth. Like,
Oh gosh.
okay.
If you say so.
It's an interesting look. I don't know if I enjoy the art chops with
Very
the
unique.
martial arts.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
think it's kind of like a nothing issue. And if I think we can definitely move on.
yeah, 2.5 for me. Instantly forgettable.
uh,
Maybe even a 2. I know I'm being
I'm
unkind
I'm
to Ball, whose art is good. It's like,
no, this isn't Ball. This is Casey Maloney. Ball was the
apologies,
previous issue.
Casey. I mean, there's some panels which look rushed. I'm looking at them right now. Like
Mm.
the geometry of the vamp is very simplified, incorrect
Yeah,
even,
and there's that one panel where they did the kind of wheelie as well. I think it feels like a rushed issue.
which is
I mean,
entirely
it's
possible.
technically
This
good.
was during COVID.
Yeah. So kudos to them for doing their best. But yeah, it is kind of like a nothing issue overall. I mean, there's like cool posing sometimes, and it's cool to see like just like a girl power issue. But it's boring. It's kind of like a Larry had to write it to kind of like build his bigger story, as it were. So that's kind of like what happened there. Yeah, you didn't want to give it, 2. I'm definitely going to give it 2.
No, I think we've echoed each other completely on this episode, because yeah, it's a 2 for me as well. I'll probably never read this issue again.
Yeah, same. Because what they set up here is basically explained again later on, so you never have to read this issue again. There's no like, oh, I need to go back to it because I see Alpha 100 Alpha. I'm Alpha. Oh, I'm
And
amazing.
spoiler alert, Rob, but I mean, this reveal at the end has happened about 3 times to this point. Like, there's always a bigger, badder BN00 insert number here, as in Blue Ninja kind of leader. And it's just, how can we be going back to this well so soon? Maybe it's a problem that we've kind of read these issues almost binge style. Because if it was coming out month to month, but I think about Larry, and I think about a guy who's able to play the long game,
Mm,
like a character that appears in, or a concept that appears in issue number 2, then reappears in the 70s of the run, like years down the line. I'm talking about the paranoia waves and the terradromes. And then
mm,
he revisits that then decades later in IDW. So it feels like these concepts are being returned to a lot quicker. Like the turnaround time is a lot tighter, and it's like, it's not clever that way. Like, we enjoy these callbacks to material from decades ago, not something that I read 6 months ago. You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, I know that makes sense.
Mm.
Um, you want it to be rewarding for the long-term fans, essentially. People who've actually, spent the time to read the entire series, rather than just like someone who just read the last, 2 issues and it's like, oh, there's that thing I just saw 2 months ago. Yes, you did. You saw that. You're not really that excited about it, are you? No, I'm not. I hope the series ends soon.
You bastard. Well, that wraps up our comic book recap. We're going to be doing cartoons next week. So stay tuned for
Oh,
not
hell
next
yeah.
week. Next week. Okay, let's back this up.
Week.
In 2 weeks' time, we'll be doing cartoons, but next week we will be debuting our Cobra Convergence 7 contribution, which Paul
Whoa.
is feverishly working on as we speak, of course. It will be
Absolutely.
a play motion adventure in the style of previous entries in the Cobra Convergence. It will be the international backyard where we feature
Oh
play
my
motion
goodness.
creators, friends of ours, fans of ours, uh, like YouTube channel owner acquaintances of ours, anyone who has come onto our radar and wants to play with their toys in front of their cameras. It's fair game, man. And Paul's whipped up a very interesting plot line. I'm not going to give away the details here, but stay tuned because this time next week it will be live. And I think we
You will
are scheduled to go
see
live
it.
with the Commander HCC 788 on the same day as the
Ooh.
release. I need to
Well,
confirm
hell
with
yeah.
Brian, but I think I mistook what he was trying to do because now that I am seeing the other creator interviews that he's doing with other channels, I realized they were supposed to be pre-records. I assumed it was going to be a live stream. So
Ah.
hopefully
So
we
it
can
could
get
come
Brian
out
on.
anytime between
Mm.
now and
But
forever.
yes, we will be making the details public on our various socials, so check that out.
Do it.
New shit time. I
Oh my god,
got a cool
Stephen, tell me what you
t-shirt.
got. No, you didn't. Ah, dude. Banging. Banging.
Friend of the
What is
show,
that
Gary
shirt for those who
V.
can't see it?
It's the Chaplain Assistant's Motorpod official merch. He
Oh my
unveiled it at
goodness.
JoeFest 2023, and it is very cool design. It's fixing the fight for freedom wherever there's trouble because Gary is a gearhead, and he if you think that we really geek out with the suspension of disbelief, well, imagine our level of suspension of disbelief if we actually had any actual mechanical knowledge to bring to the table. Well, Gary does. So when he talks about GI Joe concepts and vehicles, he really gets into the nuts and bolts and makes these things feel like what if this was taken into the real world. So yeah, let's pimp that shirt one more time with some better lighting. Thank you, Gary V. Loving the shirt. It's a great fit and was lovingly muled to me by Zazel, who was at Joe Fest.
Hey.
Zazel of Sergeant Slaughter's Slaughterhouse fame. Yeah, thank you, Zays. It was a lovely little drink session we had. Got all the skinny on Joe Fest, all the skinner, as you might say in Afrikaans, of what
Ooh,
went down.
Skinner Yellow. Okay. And you both got
And
to share your
then
experiences of going to the States. I think that's fantastic.
yeah, well, I think I let him do the talking mainly because I wanted to hear what
Yeah.
went down, man. What went down that no one's talking about on record.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Uh-oh.
good times. But yeah, no, look, I'm being a shameless gossip. The truth is, nothing bad went down. It was all good. It was a good vibes event.
Of
So
course.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Good man. Good
And
man.
any new shit you want to talk about? I suppose we spoke about the movies.
Just talked
Plenty.
about the movies, nothing yet. With me being sick this week, I didn't get a chance. I need to actually give up all my address. But I'm hoping definitely before the next episode, I will have new stuff to talk about. So I'm very excited to see all the brand new stuff that has been coming to Paul on my behalf over the last couple of months.
Toys, toys, toys,
Yeah.
toys, toys to toys, 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 toys,
Toys.
toys to toys. We would like to shout out our Patreon members, the Berg Force, wonderful
Incredible.
group of people that somehow feel it in them to throw money at us month to month. Thank you very much. Every little bit helps. It keeps our StreamYard um, membership up to date, our Podbean membership up to date. Helps Paul get some new toys into the Berg quarters. and just basically greases the wheels. And this thing that we love doing just for the love, it also helps our pockets from not hurting in the process of doing it. What am I saying? Basically, thank you.
I don't know.
If you'd
Thank you
like to
very
join
much
the
to
Berg
everyone.
Force and have early access to these episodes, www.patreon.com/GI Joburg. There are also neat little extras that Paul throws up from time to time, like music, like discounts to our Teespring store. We can get some
Whoa.
pretty cool merch. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Jason Merle
Hell yeah.
says that his son still wears Paul's version 2 Eels shirt. And where else are you going to
Oh,
get a robot shark G.I. Joe on a t-shirt? Come on. Check
of
out our
course, of
Teespring. You
course.
won't be disappointed.
Eels version 2 inspired shirt.
That one, yeah. Very cool. Paul, no doubt, misses us a lot, and we miss him. But we wish him well. Hope he gets better soon. And that's the whole show.
That's us. We cracked ahead. We hit some really cool comic books. Well, Steve, I was very surprised. I mean, I was surprised by myself actually that some
Hmm,
modern late era IDW comics were actually good.
incredible.
Not to be a downer on like the later issues, but it has felt kind of like a chore, and it was nice to kind of find some of the diamonds in the rough, as it were.
Oh
They're
yeah,
still
that
there.
Billy Penn
They're still
issue I
there.
will read any day. That's so cool, man.
It's gonna happen. It's definitely gonna happen. And yeah, it makes me feel more excited for like what's coming next. I think under a new editor, a new publisher, I think the future's still bright for GI Joe and comics. So, yo, Joe.
Yo, Joe.
Berg.
Berg. Nice. Timing.
Hey.